I'm Maheshika Halbeisen, and this is the Queen Elizabeth Leadership Podcast, the show where we discuss the leadership lessons from the book The Job Well Done, The Queen's Way to Successful Leadership.
The Job Well Done, it totally flipped my perspective.
Right.
It takes her whole reign, analyzes it through a leadership lens, and wow, some seriously surprising stuff in there. Really got me thinking.
Yeah, it's interesting, right? Like, you'd assume a book about a queen's leadership would be all about, well,
Being queen.
exactly, being queen. But this one, The Job Well Done, it's by Dr. Maheshika Halbeisen.
Right.
It digs into the how,
Yeah.
the actual qualities, the choices, the things that made her reign so impactful. And it gets even, I guess, deeper
Yeah.
because she's got this whole personal connection woven in.
Oh, totally. Dr. Halbeisen's own story adds a whole other layer, right?
Right.
It was her grandmother back in Sri Lanka who actually encouraged her to go study in the UK. And her reasoning,
What was it?
the queen will take care of you.
Wow.
Isn't that something?
It really says something, doesn't it, about the queen's reach? I mean, how she just embodied this, stability and duty that people felt globally.
It's true.
And that kind of leads us to the book's first big point, I think, which is it wasn't just how long she reigned, but the sheer work ethic of it all.
Oh, yeah.
We're talking over 70 years in a crazy demanding role, working 40 hours a week until practically the very end.
It's unreal, that level of dedication, that consistency for decades. You got to wonder if that's what built that, unshakable public image. Did it inspire people? Set a bar for everyone else? So much to unpack there.
And the book gives this great example about this commitment, this unwavering thing she had.
Okay.
It quotes Andrew Marr, and he said there's literally no record of the queen ever, losing her temper or refusing to do her duty.
Seriously.
Yeah.
You kidding? Over 70 years, all that pressure? Never cracked?
Apparently not.
No way. I'd have at least, one royal meltdown a week, let's be honest.
Right.
But this brings up something the book digs into that I found really fascinating, which is you've got the queen, right? Distant figure, almost mythical.
Yeah.
And yet somehow...
People felt like they knew her.
Exactly. It's how did she manage to be both the queen and this sort of mother to the nation?
It's a total paradox.
It is. And the book does a good job of unpacking that.
Oh, it does.
It's when it mentions how much she loved her corgis.
Yeah.
Or that she rebuilding car engines, stuff like that. It makes her relatable.
It does.
Human. But it doesn't take away from the whole queen image at all.
Exactly. And that, to me, says there was a very deliberate, approach to it.
Oh, for sure.
This cultivation of how she came across. Even those little details, the hobbies, the clothes, the book, makes a case that those were all carefully thought out.
Really?
To connect with people,
Yeah.
but without ever, losing that authority. Fascinating.
It's true. She just got it,
Got it, yeah.
That power of image, of meeting people where they were at, but still.
Being the queen.
Being the queen.
Yeah.
Exactly. And speaking of that, the book gets into this whole other leadership thing she had going on, which putting duty before feelings.
Oh, yeah, that's a big one.
Yeah.
And it's so different from everything today,
Right.
all this emphasis on you got to be you, follow your heart. But the job well done, it makes this point that Queen Elizabeth, she put her duty to, the crown, the people, the whole system,
Right.
often above what she might have personally wanted.
Which is wild to even try to wrap your head around these days.
It is.
But just think, she worked with 15 prime ministers.
15.
15.
Right.
From Churchill to
Wow.
Liz Truss. I mean, talk about personalities, political climates, opinions. Can you imagine?
And yet, through it all, she was this
Yeah.
constant, this steady presence.
Total rock.
And the book's point is this dedication to duty, even when it was probably really hard,
Yeah.
that's what made her so successful.
Makes you think, right?
It does.
Is that the missing ingredient these days? Because it's easy to get swept up in follow your passion,
Yeah.
but maybe a little dose of that discipline.
There's something there.
Right. And then on top of that, the book talks about all the change she lived through.
Oh, tell me about it.
I mean, 1953 when she took over compared to now. It's mind-blowing.
The world was a completely different place.
Completely. So how do you even begin to lead through that?
Well, that's the thing, right?
Yeah.
The UK back then, they were still recovering from the war.
Oh, wow.
Rationing was still going on.
Right.
And the whole country was about to go through these massive social changes, technology exploding, everything. But through it all, she represented, like, steadiness.
The stability.
Stability, exactly.
And that's what the book highlights, this crazy ability to be both. Like, to embrace the change, but still be that rock.
Totally. It argues that her adaptability, but holding on to those core values, that was huge. Like, she embraced TV, for instance.
That's smart.
To connect with people in a way that, like, no other monarch had before.
That's so interesting. It makes you think about leaders today with all the tech stuff constantly changing. How do you stay, I don't know, relevant?
Relevant, yeah.
But without losing what matters. Like, what can we learn from that?
Such good questions.
Yeah.
And those are things that The Job Well Done really wants us to consider, I think. But it's not all big picture stuff either.
Right, right.
It also gets into how detail-oriented she was.
Right. Like that high-quality perfectionism thing it talks about.
Yeah.
And it wasn't about being, like, demanding or flashy.
Yeah, well, yeah.
But about just doing everything, whether it was a speech or whatever.
To the best of her ability.
The absolute best every single time. Every detail mattered.
And that's the lesson, right?
Mm.
That real leadership, often it's in those little things.
It's true.
The consistency, the behind-the-scenes stuff that nobody sees.
And it really makes you think, right? Like, so much leadership today is about, I don't know, being flashy or whatever.
Totally.
But with her, it's like this quiet commitment.
It's there.
And speaking of not flashy, the book also gets into her whole mastery of soft power, which is fascinating.
Oh, yeah.
Because we always think of power as this big, obvious thing.
Right.
But she was doing it in a totally different way.
Subtle.
Yeah, subtle. Like, not commanding a room, but, I don't know, influencing it just by being there.
Exactly.
Yeah.
The Job Well Done talks about how she used, like, everything.
Everything.
Her speeches, her clothes, even just showing up places.
Wow.
To get messages across, build relationships on a global scale. Never, like, in your face, but crazy effective.
It's that thing, right? The most powerful people, you don't have to be told they're powerful.
Exactly.
You just, like, feel it.
You feel it. And with her, it seems like that was tied to the consistency, that steadiness we keep talking about.
Right, right.
You think about it. State dinners, those visits, on and on. She was a fixture for, like, ever.
Decades.
Decades. So the book's arguing that this projected, stability, reliability.
Especially in a world that's kind of nuts.
Oh, yeah, everything changing constantly. That kind of, steadfastness. It becomes super valuable.
It's wild to think, like even her choosing a certain brooch or something could
Yeah.
actually mean something huge to people watching.
That's the power of symbolism, though, right?
That's true.
Understanding that even those tiny details, they send a message.
They do.
And the book argues, like, the queen mastering that quiet communication.
Yeah.
That was one of her biggest strengths. Building bridges, in a way that just shouting never could.
Yeah.
Makes you think about the tools we, miss, don't we?
We do. It's like everyone's trying to learn the language of leadership, but maybe it's more like learning to be quiet in the right way.
Ooh, I like that.
Right.
That's good.
Yeah.
And that leads to what might be the biggest question the book asks, especially with all this duty over feeling stuff.
Okay.
What if, instead of seeing it as cold or harsh, it was actually like dedication to something bigger than yourself?
Whoa.
Right. Because everything tells us to follow our bliss, all that. But the queen, like The Job Well Done, lays out there's power in saying, this thing matters more than just what I want.
It's a really different way of looking at it, for sure.
Totally. It's like a challenge, right? To figure out where in our own lives that kind of duty might actually help us grow. Our jobs, our relationships, even just like our neighborhoods.
It's not ignoring yourself, but it's sort of saying sometimes the best stuff comes from that bigger commitment.
Exactly. And that, to me, is what we're left with. This deeper understanding of, like, not just Queen Elizabeth's life, but what it means for how we lead now.
It's true.
It's a great read, honestly. Anyone into leadership, history, even just, like, curious about her.
Right. Who was this lady?
Yeah.
Amazing. Well, there you have it. Our deep dive into The Job Well Done and all those unexpected leadership things we can learn from, of all people, Queen Elizabeth.
It's there.
Until next time, everybody, keep exploring, keep learning, and hey, maybe real leadership's a lot closer than we think.
Are you ready to elevate your leadership to new heights? Learn from the Queen? Follow us on this podcast and get your copy, The Job Well Done, The Queen's Way to Successful Leadership. Connect with me. Just search Maheshika Halbeisen and tell me how the Queen has inspired you.